What's up, everybody? This is the Booch, and welcome to episode 14 of my hit show, Booch Shoots On. And this week, if you can tell from the title, this is definitely one episode that I never thought in a billion years I would have ever made. If you'd have asked me back in May of 2020 if I would ever make a video like this, I would have to say you were out of your fucking mind. But you're not out of your mind, because you can tell from the title, I'm making the video. It's Booch Shoots On, revising my opinion on Game Changer Wrestling. Now, before I get into this video, I'll give some people a little backstory for those who may not know. And I'll even put some links in the description for you to check out. Back in May of 2020, I did 2 episodes of Booch Shoots On. One was on a match between the Invisible Man and the Invisible Stan. And the other match was a social distancing match done by Jimmy Lloyd and good old Jelly Janela himself, Joey Janela. And at the time that I made those videos, I pretty much ripped the company apart. I mean, I was a little lighter on the social distancing side because I was more focused on the 2 wrestlers in the ring. But obviously when we got to Invisible Man versus Invisible Stan, I said some disparaging things about the company. Because at the time, all I had to go on with Game Changer Wrestling was those 2 matches. And the only reason I even saw those 2 matches was because my friend, Gator Ricky Ross, sent them to me. Because when I was doing Booch Shoots On, when I came up with the idea to do this show, obviously there were topics in and out of wrestling that I wanted to shoot on, that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted to get into. But also, when people found out that I was going to do the show, mostly my friends, they decided to send me shit. And Gator sent me those 2 videos and asked me to make videos on them. So I did. I watched the videos, I watched the matches, I gave my opinion. And for about 2 years, the opinions that I had in that video pretty much stayed the same. Now, just to be clear, my thoughts on the actual social distancing wrestling match, my opinions on that have not changed. My thoughts on the Invisible Man versus Invisible Stan match, that has not changed. I stand by what I said about those matches in that video. So this video is not me changing my opinion on those 2 incidents. This video is me changing my opinion of the overall company itself. Because like I said, that was all I had to go by. I had never watched Game Changer Wrestling, never followed it up until that point, and after those 2 matches, it completely turned me off because I felt like if this is what they're doing on a regular basis, I don't want any part of it. But then, roughly about 2 years later, actually it was April 2nd, 2022 to be exact, I was with Buff Bagwell, right here, in Dallas, Texas, for the Joey Janela Spring Break Clusterfuck. And there was a part 1, there was a part 2. So they had part 1, I believe, on the 31st, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was March 31st. And they had the second show on April 2nd. And originally, when we were going to go to Dallas, we were going to do a Rebuilding Buff podcast at a comedy club in Dallas, Texas. That was the original plan, was Buff Bagwell and Michael Long, because he was working with us at the time before he scammed all the Buff Bagwell fans and we found out what a kitty-touching piece of shit he really is. But at this time, we didn't know all this stuff and we were still, on good terms with him. So at this time, we were all still getting along. And when the show got canceled, the Rebuilding Buff show got canceled, Michael, who had booked the show and did all that stuff, he did some fast acting and reached out to Game Changer Wrestling, reached out to Brett Lauderdale, who I now know is the owner of Game Changer Wrestling. Obviously, at the time I made the last 2 videos, I didn't know his name. But he gets a hold of Brett Lauderdale and books the show. So now we're going to this Game Changer show. And obviously, at the time, I'm having reservations in the car. Michael is basically as giddy as a schoolboy. He's jacking his dick and squeezing his titties at the thought of going to a Game Changer Wrestling show because he's one of those deathmatch marks that's into shit like this. So he's having the time of his life. Buff's just there to do business, and be professional. And I'm sitting here going, I have no idea what the fuck is about to happen. And I know Joey Janela is going to be there, and I have no idea what the fuck's going to happen, because if you saw the comment section on the social distancing match, I mentioned that when I posted that video to social media, Joey Janela saw the video I posted and decided to attack me on social media. Apparently, I hurt his little feelings, and he got butt-hoit and decided to attack me. And basically made fun of me for being fat. Like, that's all he has to go on, is the fact that I'm fat, and tries to use that as a way to insult me, which is fucking stupid. And the reason it's fucking stupid is because, here's the thing, in order to fat shame someone, that person has to be ashamed for being fat, which I'm not. I have never in my life had a self-image problem. I've never looked at myself in the mirror and thought, oh my God, I'm ugly. Those thoughts never entered my mind. Now, other people might think I'm ugly, and that's their opinion and they're entitled to it, but I've never felt that about myself. Anytime I've lost weight in my life, or lost weight and gained weight, and lost weight and gained weight, there was always a motivating factor behind it. And looking good was never one of them. Because, like, even if you lose weight, you'll get laid. I already do. So, really, there had to be other incentives to get me to lose weight. Like, when I wrestled in high school, I dropped weight so I could wrestle better. When I was on the Regular Guys show, I did the Fat Guy 5000, which was a radio segment, and I wanted to make the show look good. For a period of time when I worked as a video editor for DDP Yoga, I was doing the DDP Yoga because I wanted to be part of the DDP Yoga community and hopefully get the job full time. So I had motivating factors to get me to lose weight. So him making fun of me for being fat and seeing as that's all he had to go on was fucking lame. Meanwhile, I'm attacking him with everything under the sun, basically saying that he's out of shape, he's constantly making botches and all this other stuff. He's like, you're an ugly fucking chode. I know God doesn't exist. He wouldn't make anything so ugly. I said, well, there's obviously no wrestling God either, because you're out of shape, constant botch making ass wouldn't have a job anywhere if that was the case. So we just went back and forth on Twitter. And then eventually we stopped. Then there was a moment in time where, I was making a post. There was a post about someone saying Commander was better than The Undertaker, and I lost my freaking mind on that. And I was talking about, the fact that, did Commander do this move better than The Undertaker? And you talk about the old school, and I'm like, no. Because when Undertaker did it, he twists the arm, which triggered all the people on social media. It's like, oh yeah, the evil twisting of the arm. Yeah, twisting the arm to get wrist control. That's what I was referring to, by the way. Because if you hold somebody's hand and walk up something, that person can easily pull you down. But if you twist somebody's arm and you have wrist control, it's harder to pull that person down. Now, obviously, some people were putting memes of Vladimir Kozlov or maybe two other people pulling The Undertaker down. But how often did you see that in The Undertaker's career? Not very often. Everybody else, they twist the arm, he walked up, took 2 steps, and hit it. He made it look believable. Commander made it look fucking embarrassing. And then I had to throw in that Joey Janela is an outlaw mud show piece of shit, because I do believe he is. I've seen him wrestle in AEW. He was god-awful. Obviously, he and I didn't get along on Twitter. And obviously, the Outlaw Mud Show part didn't happen until about a year ago. So, I'm kind of jumping ahead on the Joey Janela timeline here. But you get what I'm saying. So, I had a feeling things are not going to go well. Is Joey even going to remember who I am? Are we going to have a fight? What the fuck's going to happen? But I plan on walking in professional, because that's what I'm doing. Okay? At the end of the day, I'm a professional. I can coexist with anyone as long as we can do business and make money. Okay? I'm not the person that's going to walk in and start shit. That's not me. That's not my style. But if I'm minding my own business and someone starts shit with me, that's another story. I will respond. But if you're professional with me, I'm professional with you. If you're unprofessional with me, I'm going to be unprofessional with you. It's simple as that. You're nice to me, I'm nice to you. You're a dick to me, I'll be a dick right back to you. Because that's just how I operate. So I can be nice if you can be nice. And I will say at that show, if Joey did remember who I was, he was professional enough not to start shit. But anyway, we get to the building. And at first I'm sitting here going, what the fuck? Because there's like, trash cans filled with, empty cans over here. I can't tell if they're soda cans or beer cans or whatever. So at first I'm kind of like, what the fuck? But then, I saw a bunch of people there. Matt Cardona was backstage. Effie was backstage. Biff, Busick, Maven was there. And I just met Maven earlier that day. I think Charlie Haas might have been there too. there were a couple wrestlers coming in to be part of the Clusterfuck Battle Royal and make an appearance. And, so I'm meeting everybody. Everybody was cool. And then while I'm there, I'm wearing my suit because, Buff and Michael both agreed Vinny should wear a suit to look professional. So I'm wearing a suit the whole weekend. So at one point, I look at the ramp to see that Buff's coming down because the plan is they're going to have Buff Bagwell because at the time, he was still in the leg brace and had a crutch. So his leg wasn't fully healed yet. So they knew he could do a little bit, but not a lot. So the plan that Brett Lauderdale had was to have the legend pop of Buff coming out. We're just going to have the legend pop. He'll do a couple things. Joey's going to super kick him. 1, 2, 3, pin him, get him eliminated. It was going to be quick. So I look over at the ramp and I realize there's no railings for Buff to grab onto. Because it's hard for Buff to maneuver with that thing, on a slant. Like going upstairs or downstairs, he usually has to hold a railing in order to get up. So I look over at Buff, and this is all I said. This is all I said to him. I went, "You're going to be able to get down there by yourself?" And Buff looks at me and says, "No, I don't think I'm going to be able to. You should come out with me." And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, fuck yeah, it's going to be awesome. So he goes and tells Brett and everybody, I'm going to have Vinny come out with me. And they were going to call me the Butler. Because at the time that we were in Dallas, Buff was filming the show Change or Die. So at the time, I was helping Buff carry his stuff back when he would come back from shows, and I go to the crib. And I remember Steve Yu jokingly said, when you get back in the ring, you should have Vinny come out with you and be your butler. And we all started laughing. It was a good joke and everything else. So we decided to go with the Butler. But I'm like, that's too plain. So I tried to come up with Butler names. In my head, I'm like, Alfred, Jeeves, Jenkins. And then I thought about this old show from the 90s, movie, I should say, from the 90s, called It Takes Two, that starred Kirstie Alley and Steve Guttenberg, and also the Olsen twins. And I remember in the movie, there was a butler. The butler's name was Vincenzo, which is my name in Italian, Vinny Vincenzo. So I went with Vincenzo the Butler. That's the name. Right when I come up with the name, the ring announcer, Emil J, comes walking by. So I grab him, I pull him to the side. I said, "Hey man, you got Buff's intro, you know what to do?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm all set." I said, "Well, we need you to add one more thing. They want me to come out to the ring with him. So before you get to Buff's intro, make sure you say, being accompanied to the ring by Vincenzo the Butler." He goes, "Vincenzo the Butler?" I'm like, "Yes, Vincenzo the Butler." Emil goes, "Got it. I'll take care of it. No problem." I said, "Thanks, brother." And he kept on walking. And just let me say right now, Emil J is one of the best ring announcers I've ever seen. I love the way he ring announces. I love the energy he brings. And I remember one time briefly in an interview I saw, it was like a clip, where he said that what he likes to do as a ring announcer is he likes to be the hype man for the show, get the crowd excited, have the energy like he's the master of ceremonies. And I loved hearing him say that because that is the exact same approach that I take to ring announcing. Now, granted, his style is a little different than mine. Our styles aren't alike as far as delivery of words and stuff. But the attitude of, as the ring announcer, you're the hype man, you're the master of ceremonies for the show, you're the guy who needs to get the crowd excited. That's what I always brought to the table. I used my comedic side to bring that to the table, and the attitude of like a hosting comedian. I brought that attitude into ring announcing and used that as part of my skills. So I love the fact that Emil has that same mentality. Because for a while, I thought I was the only one. So big props to Emil J. Awesome guy. So anyway, Joey goes out to the ring, does his thing. And then for Buff, they play the American Males theme song. So we come out and the crowd's going, "American males, American males, American males, American males, American males, American males, American males." And Buff's singing it, I'm singing it, and we're going, "If you see them coming, better run for cover. Girls, you don't need a weekend lover. American males." And the crowd is going insane. They're going nuts. So then eventually I walk around, Buff puts his hand on my shoulder, and you see me kind of balancing myself. So I'm trying to make sure Buff stays balanced, and we walk down the ramp. I'm high-fiving people. Everybody's having fun. They're loving it. Too sweet all the way down. Emil J gives the answer. The commentators put me over going, "VTB" for Vincenzo the Butler. It was great. And then we had to find a chair. We had to get Buff in the ring. Joey does the clap. Buff does the clap, the American male clap, then he hits him with the super kick. At one point, Buff's sunglasses, his lens popped out, hit the ground, and I managed to quickly grab it before the ref hit checked me to slide in and go 1, 2, 3, and eliminate him. So, of course, I'm reacting, everybody else is reacting. And the whole time we're in the ring, or by the ringside area, everything was cool. You know, Joey, of course, laughed, look at the bald guy, and I didn't care. That didn't offend me at all. Why? Because it was in the ring, it was in front of the fans, Joey was being Joey. So I didn't take that personally. The only thing I ever took personally, or what I had a problem with, was the shit that we argued about on Twitter. That's where I was like, fuck this guy. But in the ring, he could say whatever he wanted about me. It's wrestling, it's in front of the fans, it's entertainment. What happens in the ring, happens in the ring. Do your thing. So that shit didn't bother me. So then, we get Buff, we go to the back, everything's great, everybody's congratulating. And then at one point, Nick Gage came over. That's another guy I was nervous about meeting because I didn't know how that was going to go. And, you know, he shakes hands with Buff, takes a picture, he comes up to me, he goes, hey, you Vincenzo the Butler? I'm like, yes, sir. He goes, I like it. Great name. Good job, kid. And he walks off. So I was like, oh, shit. So between all of that, you know, Brett Lauderdale being professional all the way through, the commentators, everybody, I started to change my opinion of Game Changer Wrestling that day. Was when my opinion really started to change. And I started to realize, okay, this place is not as bad as I thought it was. Because I remember watching Chris Dickinson and Matt Cardona go out to the ring. And the bell rang. I'm watching the match because we're over. Buff and I kind of walked along the side to see some of the matches. Michael may or may not have been with us. And I'm watching it. I actually pulled a gator and said, holy shit, there's wrestling. Like, I'm watching a lot of these guys and they're wrestling. And they're working. Now, obviously, Matt Cardona is a phenomenal worker. We all know that. But in Game Changer Wrestling, it was happening. Like, he didn't bring himself down to the level of what all the other crazy people in GCW do, like with the botching with fire, where the beard catches on fire, or, you know, all the other shit. They just went out there and wrestled. And a lot of guys, and there's even this guy, Effie, who, you know, Michael would never shut the fuck up about this guy. Like, he's a huge mark for Effie. Probably the biggest Effie mark there is. Probably the only Effie mark there is. But I saw Effie wrestle and I was like, this guy's not bad. A couple of these guys I was watching and I went, holy shit, this is good. Like, I learned that in that moment I realized Game Changer Wrestling, when they actually try, can put on a great wrestling show. When they're not doing the invisible crap or the social distancing, which is probably a one-time thing that'll never happen again now that I think about it, or deathmatch stuff, and when they're not doing that, it's actually a really good show. And the clusterfuck was actually well done. And as much as I don't like Joey Janela, I will admit he was professional throughout that night. And we were civilized. He came up after the show, shook Buff's hand. I came up to him, shook his hand, and he shook my hand. He wouldn't look me in the eye, but he did shake my hand. And that was it. And some people are wondering, well, Vinny, if you hate Joey Janela so much, why did you shake his hand? And the answer is simple. Because it was the right thing to do. That's why. Because that's what you do in the business. When you're working with people, you shake their hands. It's a respect thing. It was his show. This is the Joey Janela Clusterfuck. Joey was professional throughout. He didn't take liberties with Buff Bagwell. He didn't try to take liberties with me. We all were able to be civilized and everything was cool. So yes, I shook his hand. And I even shook Brett Lauderdale's hand when we left after we made sure that Buff got paid and everything. And I was able to shake hands with everybody else that was there. Maven, who I got to meet, really cool guy. Matt Cardona shook his hand. Like, everybody backstage was very professional. And in that moment, I was able to change my opinion on Game Changer Wrestling. So that's what I want to say. I have a newfound respect for Game Changer Wrestling now that I didn't have 4 years ago. When I say I had that now, I mean, like, obviously after I left that show 2 years ago was when I developed that respect. So I've had it for 2 years, but this is the first time I've really been able to talk about it in a video. That's how I was able to revise my opinion on Game Changer Wrestling. That it's not as terrible of a company as I thought they were. Like I said, when they stay away from the invisible stuff and the deathmatch stuff and actually put on a wrestling show, it's very well done. And they get guys who can work and work very well. In fact, the only Invisible Man stuff I saw was in the Clusterfuck Battle Royal. But like they already announced it was a clusterfuck, so it didn't really hurt anything. You know? An Invisible Man in that regard really didn't hurt the product at all. So I can say that I have a newfound respect for Game Changer Wrestling. So far, the only thing my opinion hasn't changed on is Joey Janela. I still don't respect him, but I was at least respectful in that moment. Because, like I said, I wasn't there to cause trouble. And as long as trouble didn't come looking for me, I wasn't going to go looking for it. Because that's who I am. I'm a professional, and I know how to work. So that's what we did. We had a great time. If you want to see the segment, I actually have it on here. It says, Vincenzo the Butler makes GCW debut. I put that out a while back, which I'm sure is why a lot of you were confused, because you heard me say the stuff that I said back in May of 2020. Why would I be at Game Changer Wrestling? So I wanted to use this video to kind of explain it. And I'm able to explain it now that I had time to actually sit here and make this video, because, like I said, I've been going through some shit over the last couple of years, and finally I had time to sit here and actually talk to you guys about things that I've been through and things that have happened. So, ultimately, that was my experience with Game Changer Wrestling. Like I said, Emil J, one of the best ring announcers I've ever seen. Shout out to their commentators, and shout out to Brett Lauderdale. I see how hard you work to put these shows together, and I have a new level of respect for you, man. You really do know how to put on a show. And, like I said, obviously, you guys are going to do the Invisible Man, the deathmatch stuff, because you have a fan base that loves it. So I get why you're going to do it. But at least I can see that you guys do take the business seriously. And I'm not ashamed to say that my opinion has changed. And while I was right about some things about Game Changer Wrestling, I'm man enough to admit that I was wrong about a lot of other things. And like I said, it's a well-organized company. They do put on great shows, and they got guys who know how to wrestle, and a ring announcer who's truly one of the best. And that'll wrap it up for this episode of Booch Shoots On. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to be notified so you never miss another episode of Booch Shoots On, as well as other additional Vinny Bucci YouTube content. I'll talk to you guys next time. Until then, pizza, baby!